Hello, everyone, and welcome to Multiplaying Podcast. I'm Val,
I'm Ty.
and this is going to be super fun. It's a little bit different this week. It's not us freaking out, or should I say, Ty freaking out about something nerdy. I think this is more for episode 34. This might be more for me. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see
Yeah.
what you think. One, I love documentaries. And two, I just love to see like the behind the scenes stories of how things were creative. But this episode today, we are talking about the documentary Howard that's on Google Plus. Now this or Google Plus, Disney Plus. I'm Googling every day. Disney Plus. However, it was not made for Disney Plus. It's on there now, but it actually came out December of 2018. And it is about Howard, who is a composer and a writer, and he composed and wrote songs for The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. He actually took, by watching this documentary and seeing Jack Nicholson in the original film version of, oh my gosh, what was it? I just totally went blank.
It's not Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes, Little Shop of Horrors.
Was it Little Shop of Horrors?
Yeah, so Little Shop of Horrors, the original movie of this was actually, if you didn't know this about Little Shop of Horrors, it was made on a bet. They made it in 2 days and for very little budget, and Jack Nicholson is in it. Which I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's Jack Nicholson. But Howard Ashman, who this documentary is about, he actually said, you know what, let's try and take this horror film kind of and put it to theater because, there's been a lot of musicals done in horror, but not like this. This is kind of comedy, mockumentary horror film. It's not
this. So, and I wouldn't say I'm a big musical guy.
Right.
There's a handful that I will go out of my way to sit and say, I want to watch this. And one of those is Little Shop of Horrors. And so
right.
Me and my
I figured
sister,
that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just the props and the set aesthetic and everything. And the fact that you when you watch this, you find out that he created this all in this smaller theater in New York that he put together himself. And they created it all there by themselves, and it was really great. But it was a really interesting documentary. It didn't really go to a place that I thought it would go, and I'm really happy that it went there. It's interesting to see because the Disney musicals, animated movies that he was a part of are some of the happiest.
Renaissance.
It was back when the animated studios were put in some podunk, little area. They were taken off the Disney lot and they were put over, basically being shunned. Here, you're going to go hang out and time out for a little while until you can make us some money again. And he came in and he was a part of basically what saved Disney animation, and that was The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. But when you think about those, you think of joy and happiness, like in Little Mermaid, the music from The Little Mermaid and the scenes from Beauty and the Beast where, be our guest and like all this happiness. And then Aladdin. I mean, come on. Aladdin is one of mine and my daughter's, absolute favorites. But all the while he was creating Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and working on these and creating this music, he was actually dying of AIDS.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like just such a contrast.
Like you said, watching this, and I love documentaries, especially if there's something that I'm super into. Not that this was one of those, but it was educational for me. Yeah, to see, you're expecting to hear all the kind of feel good, oh, we composed this, we did this with Disney, like we basically, like you said, this was all during the Renaissance period where it literally saved Disney, but then it takes a dark turn saying, oh, well, he got AIDS and he's dying. And yeah, it went to this place that you didn't expect it. And so
Well, and it
The
just
little
gets me thinking, he was 39 years old. And when he moved, from a smaller area to New York City, he was fairly young
yeah,
and so grounded for being in theater and being in that community and being so young because he specifically had what he wanted to do. He knew that he wanted to create music. He knew what he wasn't also, which like not a lot of us have that. Like
yeah.
he's like, I acted, I knew I wasn't a lyricist, but then he started writing, lyrics and he just excelled at it, which was really great. But in this time during New York, in this time in the 70s, if you're a young person in New York with all of your friends, and you could see this in some of the people that he hung out with, especially his boyfriend at the time, you're going crazy. You're like, I'm young, I'm in theater or music or the arts, and I'm in New York and I'm going to live it up. And he was just so grounded with everything he wanted to do. And when he couldn't find a job that paid him for what he wanted to do, he created it.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a composer, he wanted to be a lyricist, he wanted to create things for the stage, but he wasn't getting paid to do that, which a lot of artists have this issue. Like you and I, we don't get paid to do this, so we have other jobs that pay our bills, and we create these different things. But he said, you know what, okay, I'll pay the bills with doing some writing, and he did copywriting and some things, and he's like, but why don't we open a theater?
Well, and then I like how it covers this, that guys, New York in the 70s was pretty sketch. Like
it was really sketch.
it
Like
was,
if you weren't living like in the really like high to do areas, it was sketch.
it was all slummy. It was all just dirty, like scary, just. And that's, yeah, again, think about this. They're in this time period in New York where it's really sketched out. And he's just like, oh, no, won't work. Don't worry about it. We're going to create this. We're just going to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
I love that because at the time he didn't know that he would work for Disney. I mean, whoever thinks that they will? A lot of people dream and they want to and they have these ideas, and when he was younger, I love how his sister tells stories. I really love the format of this documentary for one, because they really have every different person in his life telling stories about his life, including him, because they do have some recordings of him, but they have his sister kind of explaining that. And most of us did this. Most of us creative types did this. We got our GI Joes out, or we got our Barbies out, or we got, the whatever we had that was a character, and we dressed them up in whatever we had, and we created stories. And he did this, and because he had to take care of his sister, which was, a lot of people, both of their parents had to work, and so you had to entertain each other. Yeah, and so it was just really neat
Seriously.
hearing that. And he would recreate Peter Pan, and he would recreate these Disney stories that he loved. And then later on he does talk about that, how he's like, I grew up watching
Yeah.
Peter Pan and Pinocchio, and he's like, now I get to be a part of this, and it's his life. It shows every little piece of where he started, and then how he left off, and for him to leave the world at 39 at the height of his career. Those
That's,
3 Disney movies under your belt, plus he had Little Shop of Horrors, which was great on Broadway or off Broadway, but then the movie did really well. Like if he wouldn't have died, like
what would he have touched? Yeah, that's,
the
what would have
things
he
that
been
he would have
involved in?
touched that would have, made things so different than they are now.
I got this thought process that was really weird. It's like, would we have had Phil Collins for Tarzan?
Right.
Or would we have had
Right.
some version of Howard Ashman coming in, like giving us this
Right.
whole new soundtrack?
Right. I mean, because Phil Collins is great.
Yeah,
But I
nothing
mean, it's
against
just
Phil Collins, but
Howard's brain. When you watch this, you kind of get this intricate insight into his brain and how he thinks so differently than everyone else. And he's so precise about it. Usually you have artistic people, and I know this because I'm one of them, and you can get a little scatterbrained when you are passionate about something. And he was so precise. I love the moments where he's standing with Angela Lansbury and oh my gosh, what is his name? That's also in Dirty Dancing, who is
Oh, hold on. I think I got it.
Jerry O'Brock or Brock. Is that how you say that? And you have both of them, and he's standing in the recording studio with them as they're going through the song, and he's okay, now take this word and just say that a little bit, you know, up here a little more fierce, and Angela, if you can do this over here. And it's just such, they were all working together, but I feel like he brought something out of each of these actors that wouldn't have been brought out by anyone else.
Otherwise,
and everyone,
yeah.
They didn't seem frustrated by it because it was taking what they were giving and really amplifying their performance.
Yeah, you don't have the the actor to director kind of grudge, thinking how dare you impeach on my talents and my abilities thing. It seemed like, yeah, the things that he just worked on were really cohesive, and he just added to everybody.
Well, I mean, and Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel, like, she has got to be just totally thankful for Howard, because you get to see, and this is so crazy because I don't know much about Broadway. I know that I would like to go see a Broadway show. I love musicals. I've done choreography for smaller theaters here in Utah and in West Hollywood, but I don't really know about the world. And the world back then was a lot different because it really was, not a lot broke through back then. Right now, we've got a lot of different Broadway shows coming up. But back then, you had to be a specific kind of show to make it to Broadway, right? So there was like off Broadway, then there was way off Broadway, then there was what Howard was doing. And, you know, after he did Little Shop of Horrors, he had the chance to do a show that he really wanted to do, I think called Smile. And it was about a bunch of beauty queens, which to me, this just sounds super like hilarious in the best way, because my daughter was a beauty queen for a little while, and it's a really weird world to be in. Yeah.
I don't see you as a pageant mom.
Oh, I'm not. That's why she really like didn't like, I had her eating nuggets as the other parents were like, stand there and look pretty and don't eat anything and don't touch your hair. And she's over there eating McDonald's in a corner because I'm like, if you're not going to have fun doing it, then don't do it. But so he got to do this, this project called Smile. And he hired Jodie Benson, who is now, you know, the voice of Ariel and a lot of other things. She's actually been to Utah a few times for not only Fan X, but for some tours and singing. But she wasn't known at the time, and she auditioned for this musical, and it did really well in a very small theater. And, you know, anybody that has a show in a very small theater, you want to get picked up by Broadway. That's like doing an independent film and then somebody saying, hey, we'll give you the big bucks to, you know, put it over here. And it didn't do well on Broadway. Like, it did awful, and it just got shut down. And so when he was finally working for Disney, he actually brought her in. When Howard was working for Disney, he brought her in to audition for Ariel. And there's some really fun moments in this documentary where he's working with her and her audition. And you could tell, I guess she originally sang the song, Look at This Stuff, with a lower voice, which that would be so weird to hear at a lower register. And, you know, but so it's so interesting just to see this creative. He's like, oh, you sang that higher that time. Let's keep it there because it's such a childlike voice. And, you know, and to see that creative process was so much fun to see in this documentary.
Here's the thing that I'm going to get hung up on was, I love all these Disney movies that he did, but to find out that this was I had no idea about like him in Little Shop of Horrors.
Right.
The only non-Disney movie that I'm like super hung up on, like Beauty and the Beast. I'm probably, out of all the ones that he worked on, I'm going to have to say between Aladdin and The Little Mermaid have my favorite composed pieces on there. But I keep coming back to Little Shop of Horrors where I'm like, those are great. It's Disney and I love them, but this is the guy responsible for this little chunk of corny horror stuff that, like I said,
like he took that movie and he said, you know what we should do is we should bring this to Broadway. And it was a huge risk, and that, you know, I love risk takers. And so It's just so much fun. And I love to see that in the musical version, in his musical version, was a lot of the cast that was in the movie version. There was a couple of the same cast members, which was great. And of course, they pull in Steve Martin, who is amazing, and they pull in Rick Moranis, which is amazing. And it's so funny because on Movies That Make Us this month, it's Rick Moranis month, and we don't talk about Little Shop of Horrors at all, because we figure it's talked about. We talk about this week on Monday, we talk about Parenthood, and then next week we're doing Spaceballs. But we do bring up like the fact that they put those two in a movie, which they're also in Parenthood together and they're also in My Blue Heaven together. Like that time period of movies, it just happened to be those two guys that were just doing so great. And all the movies are different. Like you go from My Blue Heaven to Parenthood to Little Shop of Horrors with both of them, and it's so crazily different. Like it's just amazing. But back to Howard, like, it's, to me, he explained something that if you love Disney, you know how much we've had our villains episode, and he was so great. He's like, everyone wants to write the villain. Everyone wants to, we would rather write the villain than the hero. And he basically helped create who Ursula was. And it shows in this documentary, it shows all the different sketches to Ursula. And at one point, if you noticed, a couple of those sketches looked like Yzma.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so they didn't use it for Little Mermaid, but they kind of brought it over here for Yzma. And I thought that was so interesting, but I did not know that Ursula was based on an Ed Wood character, which was so great. And that he, you know, creating, like it shows him singing all the lyrics that he's doing because they have to put them down before they have, you know, the actor or the actress do them. And then I really love, you know, when he's creating different songs for Gaston, you know, and different, just all the villains. And when they talk about, you know, Aladdin, I don't think that song that they featured in the documentary is actually in the movie for Aladdin.
I'm wondering if it's hold on, let me see if I can find the name of it, because I'm wondering if they included it. I'm pretty sure you've seen the Aladdin at the Hyperion in Disneyland, right?
No.
What?
No.
Oh my god, what?
I've seen, you mean the musical Aladdin?
Yeah.
Or like, oh yes,
like
I've seen that several times. The musical,
I'm like,
yes.
Val,
the
how
live
have you
musical.
Never seen this?
Sammy, like we would watch that. Sammy and I were so sad when they changed it to Frozen.
Yeah,
not that we hate Frozen, but we love Aladdin. Sammy actually memorized the genie from that version, and when I directed her in her school play, one year I was really crazy, you guys. I decided to be the PTA president for her elementary school. And that same year, I brought back musicals and I directed the school musical. And I did like a whole bunch of different musical pieces, not just one. It was kind of an ensemble. And she played the genie and she mixed the version of from there and the movie together for her performance of the genie.
See, and what now knowing about this, I have such an appreciation for the guy, because look where we're at, and that, well, like I said, they just barely got rid of the Aladdin show and moved it to Frozen. But I love that show in Disneyland, or DCA,
it's so great.
And the music is what, you know, sells it the best. So that's probably, and like it says right here on his IMDb, that it was nominated for in 2014, Best Original Score 2 decades after he passed away. I'm like, that's incredible. See how timeless. It's one of those.
Well, and then for him not to even be able to see the live action versions of those, because I mean, that's as close to Broadway as you get with your music, you know? And they talk about that a little bit. I just got goosebumps. But, you know, it's crazy because during that time, you know, AIDS had just really came to the forefront in like 1983. And it was happening before then, but it just wasn't talked about in mainstream media, you know? And he didn't tell anyone that he had AIDS and he found out during the beginning works of, he was working on Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast at the same time, which is crazy, you guys.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like to have that kind of skill and to have that kind of like point. He's just very accurate, very together. And then also finding out during that time that you have AIDS halfway through the production of this, and he didn't get to see he didn't get to see Little Mermaid, I don't think was the one, right, that he didn't get to see, and everyone just loved it. And but he said something very poignant. His doctor wanted to test him for HIV, and he said, no, you can't do that because I will lose my insurance. That's crazy to me, to think that you can't get tested to find out if you have something so that you can do what you need to do to save your life. Because at that time, if you had that disease, you would lose your insurance. There were times that also happened to people who had cancer, and AIDS is a form of cancer, right? But it has such a taint on it because of how it was publicized as being, the gay cancer, the gay disease back then. And they asked him, some of his friends at Disney asked him, well, why didn't you just tell us? And he's like, I'm a not openly gay man who has this disease that everyone is afraid of, and I'm working on a kids movie. I thought I was going to get fired. And this is what I love about Disney so much, is back when companies and people were shunning people that were gay, Disney welcomed them still with open arms. And they've done it since day one, when it was an issue back in the 70s. I worked, and I say this a lot, I'm sure you guys get sick of hearing me say it, I worked for Disney for a long time.
We love it.
And they had partner insurance. You didn't have to be married. You just had to prove that this was your partner, that you lived together, that you cared for each other. They also have pet insurance, by the way. So, because they figured, this is how Disney figures. If you're worrying about things like that, you can't give us your best. So we're going to help you take care of everything that you love in your life so that you can come to work and give your best. That's the kind of company that every company should be. And now there are more companies that do that. But Disney was one of the first big companies in the world to say, you know what? None of those things matter to us. Can you show up? Can you do your job? Are you good at your job? We don't care. And it makes me so happy that once he told them, I wish he would have told them sooner, that once he told them that he didn't have to keep that secret anymore, because trying to show up every day, composure, I don't know if you've ever been sick in your life before, but trying to go to work sick and try to be on task, and you're on this deadline and everybody's feeling the pressure, and then not being able to tell people that you're sick, not being able to tell people what's going on, in your life. Like these are, when you're working on a movie, those are long days.
Yeah.
Long days. Especially an animated feature, those can take years. They do take years, and they're long days, and they're changes. And the way that they used to do it with all the big symphonies and everybody's there, they do it a little bit differently now. But, he even said he would call his partner at the end of the day, and he's like, I'm good for like 5 or 6 hours, but when I hit the 10 to 12 hour mark, I'm no good to anyone, And so I can imagine the relief of him being able to tell the people that he worked with that this is what's going on, and they could really be in tune with that. I mean, nobody likes to hold a secret, I can't even imagine how hard that was.
Well, it's not even like you said, just being sick. It's like his life was dwindling away as he was trying to do not 1, 2 movies at the same time. So yeah, like you said, take the stress that comes with just doing one of those and then double it.
Yeah. And then not being able to tell people, hey, you know what? I need to go lay down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's like my mom. She had cancer and she went to work for 10 years with cancer. And if she wasn't able to tell her employers that she had cancer, so that there were days when she had to call in and say, I had treatment 2 days ago and today is not a good day. Like, I have to work from home today. And for them to understand that, he wasn't able to do that for almost the entire time that he worked there. And he showed up every day and he just did his job, like, and he did more than his job. I mean, the way he does his job, like, supersedes any way I've ever done any job. Like, I love how they showed his notes. I love to see the way people think. And, he would write things down, and his sister, described him as being, he was empathetic to people. And that's why he was able to jump into these characters. And he wrote down for Beauty and the Beast on a notepad, what is a beast? What is a human? And so that makes you think, like, what's the difference between a human and a beast in people's eyes? And he didn't direct this movie. He didn't write the dialogue. He put the music together, but he still made it seem like he knew how much the music created the characters.
Well, I'm just wondering, do you think Disney will ever obtain any of the rights to publish a book like that, like a big compendium of his notes,
I'm surprised. I would be surprised if it's not out there, because his family seems to be, and his partner seem to be very into sharing his story.
I'm looking right now, and I'm not seeing
you don't see anything. I need to write someone, because I would love, even if it doesn't make any kind of sense, just to put together Howard's mind in a book, and to see, like, the notes that he would write, because as people are singing, as they're auditioning, he's writing, little notes down, and because he's constantly thinking. And I just love the idea of jumping inside a creative mind and seeing how it works, and just what he accomplished at such a young age. And it also proves, like, it's a chain of events, and they really explain them here. So when he was working on Little Shop of Horrors, he was working with, oh my gosh, the guy who wrote Chorus Line. What's his name?
Sorry, let me find it. I was looking at completely different.
So he's working with the guy, and I'm sorry, all you musical people, if you're like blasphemy, you don't know his name right. I'm horrible with names, but as soon as you say it, I'll be like, oh yeah, the guy who did Chorus Line. So he was working on Chorus Line, and or working on Little Shop of Horrors. It got picked up to be produced by a big producer, who then he worked on Smile with the guy who did Chorus Line. And while he was doing all of this, he got, someone that he was working with said, you know what, you need to meet Howard. And he told that to Jeffrey Katzenberg. And if you know, because we've talked about Jeffrey Katzenberg, if you know about Jeffrey Katzenberg, he is a producer, of course, but he was the chairman of the Walt Disney Studios during this time, 1984 to 1994. Some people have an issue with him because they think that he might be a part of the reason why Disney Animated Studios didn't succeed so much in the 80s, but he helped him come back in the early 90s, and then he was out of there, and then everything kind of blew up. But Jeffrey Katzenberg, how cool would this be to get a letter at his age, saying, hey, this is Jeffrey Katzenberg. I really want you to come and bring your magic to Walt Disney Animation, and then he calls him and says, dude, when are you coming? Why aren't you coming out to LA? When are you coming out here? And I mean, that's like the biggest dream come true. Did you find it?
Is it Alan? Is it Alan Menken? No.
I think. I don't know. That doesn't. I mean, Alan Menken sounds familiar, but let's see. Chorus Line musical creator.
Oh, I guess I could have typed that, and I was trying to look at other stuff.
So Marvin Hamlish was there with him, but Edward, let's see who directed it, because I don't think it was. Anyway, so he did work with Marvin Hamlish, and they have him in the movie as well. They did not, I think it was Marvin Hamlish. So they did not really get along while they were making Smile, because they're very different people. And then they they kind of explained that when it didn't get a good review, Marvin just kind of sunk back. And when they said that, I thought of like Homer just kind of sinking into the bush.
Into the bush, just
he was just kind of like, nah. But yeah, so he just kind of left him alone. But I really want to find Smile, and I kind of want to watch it. Like, I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, right? Like, it's got to be there somewhere. But I kind of want to watch it. So I think it would be fantastic. But I do believe there is something to be said about having musicals in smaller theaters. That's why we have, like the Hale Center Theater. There's theaters in the round. There's the Black Box Theaters. Some shows are so much better when they're intimate, and some
smaller,
shows
compact.
Yeah, and some shows are made to be these big productions.
Well, I guess this is a dumb question. I'm assuming you've been to the Hale Center Theater and seen some.
I've been to all of them.
Been to all of them. See,
my aunt and uncle actually work for Hale.
Oh, okay. So. See, guys, this is where I'm the backseat driver in this part of the show. I've only ever been to Hale Center Theater. Well, I guess I've been to one other that's here in Utah County, but I don't do many live shows.
But yeah, I mean, and I've been to, a lot of the smaller theaters. Again, I've done choreography for some local theaters, small theaters, and children's theaters here. And there are some shows that are so great when the audience is just right up against them, and then there's some shows, it's just like concerts. There's some people that it's better to have them singing with a mic, in a very small venue. You put them in a huge venue and it just doesn't read, and there's some people that if you take them off a big, big stage with 50,000 people and you put them in front of 150 people, they don't know what to do. I mean, it's just very different. Yeah, very different. So it was interesting to see that part of the story and his struggle, but I loved how they showed how he created their own family. If you're involved in any kind of arts, or nerd fandoms, you kind of create your own families inside of that.
People. You do.
Yeah. And so it's so much fun.
It's your squad. Yeah. That's you.
Yeah.
I've like-minded people.
I've got my con family who go with me, any event that I'm doing for cons or anything nerdy, like all I have to do is like blow, the nerdy horn and, they come, they're my family, and we all have great stories. And it's so great that he had a support system in New York when he needed it. And I love the story when, the people that he was working with on the Little Mermaid show up to his hospital bed and they said, we knew it was the last time we were going to see him. And they just said, people are loving this movie. And it was like 2 or 3 weeks before it opened or something like that. But they had, been doing these screenings and they said, people love this movie. Like, who would have thought? And, he reached up and said, I would have. Like, he believed in everything he did. He didn't just say, give in, this is how we should do it. This is how we should see it.
Well, even from the beginning of this, like right as you start watching this and you start hearing the testimonies of like everyone who knew him, he pretty much jumped out of the womb with like this vast capability of storytelling and being able to get people on board. Like it was just like you were saying, going back to him taking care of his little sister.
Yeah.
He'd take the few minutes to set it up and then he'd bring her in, they'd go with it. And you just watch the different levels that went from him and his sister to, him and his high school troupe, and then going to the super hippie college and now having that acting troupe. He always had that showmanship and like confidence to bring everything up and to pull people in with it.
Yeah. I love the story that they say with his dad, because his dad, tried to do all the masculine dad things at that time, because during that time it was like, even though some of the biggest movies in cinema were actually musicals when he was a kid. I mean, you had Cary Grant, you had, all these things, you had Singing in the Rain, you had all of these actors who were singers and dancers. It still wasn't a thing to put your son in a dance class. And so he's like, hey, how about sports? Hey, how about this? And he just wasn't into it. And I love the story when he's like, well, dads take their sons fishing, so let's go fishing. And they're sitting there fishing. And the dad looks at him and he's like, are you having fun? And the kid's like, not really.
No.
And he's like, are you? And he's like, yeah, not really. Let's go. Like, and then, they just let him be who he wanted to be, which at that time, like, that's huge. That's a big deal. Like, for them to say, go to art school, go to college, when him and his sister were the first ones to go to college in their family, but for him to go to college for something like acting in musicals was not, common from especially the area that he was living in. And I just thought that was so great. And I love how they said, his parents, they really didn't know. And like, okay, if you're going to go to college for this, like, you need to go to this college. They were just happy that their kids were going to college. So when he moved to New York and everybody's like, well, I went to Harvard, and he's like, well, I mean, I didn't, but he was better than all of them. That's why I get so frustrated when people, I think I'm going to rephrase this. I think education is important. Okay. But when you pick someone for a job or to hang out with or to run your company because of the school they went to instead of their ability, it makes me so crazy.
Yep.
How have they utilized their education? Because there are a ton of people that have gone to Harvard or Yale or whatever who are dicks. And I'm just going to say it. I'm sorry. I know this is a Disney thing, but they're not the best at what they do. They're not good people. It's all about people. It's all about how you're utilizing your education. And I don't think it matters how you got your education, but how you're utilizing it and the kind of person that you are. How do you treat the people around you? And so it irritates me so bad. So I love when he said that, like, I'm sitting in New York around all these, kids that went to Harvard, and he went to some hippie school where they don't even grade you. How did I not know about this school? I want to go to a college where they don't grade you and you just get to be creative.
And you get to practice the arts. Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, my dog is licking my feet and it startled me. So I know this isn't your usual jam, and you probably are like, what is Valerie making me watch this week? But I mean, did you like it?
Yeah, it's not something, like I said, it's not something I'm going to probably go out of my way to watch. Mm-hmm. But I like, even if there's documentaries that I don't like, I appreciate them for what I learned from it. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this gave me a whole new respect for that live Aladdin show, for a lot of the music, definitely for Little Shop of Horrors. And I liked it. It's not something I'm probably going to be like, oh, I need to go watch Howard.
Well, I mean, that's not usually what a documentary is about. Like, usually there are very few documentaries that I will go back and watch more than once. There are a few, but not many. Most of the time it's you go, you watch it, you learn something great, and it sparks you to go watch something else and to go learn about something else and to go look things up. Like, well-made documentaries should make you actually kind of never go back to that documentary again because you're moving forward in your education about that moment.
I will say that's the Imagineering story.
Yeah, I mean, it's magical. I can watch
frequently.
During the beginning of the pandemic, during the dark days of the pandemic, when we all thought we just had to stay in our basements and not communicate with the world, I watched it a lot just because it makes me super happy. But I think that's a different made documentary.
Yeah.
Those moments, the way that they made it was really to be watched over and over. But I will probably watch this again after I've gone back and watched some of these movies, because I love some of the things that he said about the making of the referencings in the scene, because I like to go back and see art through the eyes of the person that made it. Once you kind of hear their story first, I like to see it on my own. Like, it's, I want to absorb it, suck it in. And then, yes, I want to go and kind of hear the story and kind of pick the brain of the person that did it. And this really is, it's not only a tribute to Howard's life, it's a tribute to his work. And it really is, like, I always say this is like, you can always, after a person's gone, you can always recognize what kind of person they were by the people that they kept around them and by the people that tell their story when they were gone. And he seemed like a really great person that really took care of people. Like, it's really hard, I think, sometimes to be a creative person and to be, because it is a fight, dude. Like if you decide to take that leap and go to LA or go to New York or go to a big city that holds your art to where everybody heads to, like you're competing every day.
Yeah.
And to be somebody that's in that competitive world, that's going through the struggles that he went through, he didn't make those struggles a huge part of his life. You know, like somebody said in the movie, someone said, like a couple people in the movie said, okay, you can see how these struggles that were going on during that time show up in these musicals. And that someone knew him the best said, his sister said, you know what, you can say all day long that, the parts of, Beast being hunted down was kind of, about the social things at the time, or you can kind of say this and this about Ariel, but she said that wasn't him. He never put himself in a story, but he did. Like he didn't make it about him, but he gave of himself to the characters, to the music, but he empathized with who those characters might be. And because he had those struggles, it made it more real. He didn't have to pretend or come up with something. He empathized with them, and they tried to realize what it would be. And someone from the Disney company, quoted and said that the great thing about him was that he wasn't political. Yeah. He cared more about the art. And I'm not saying don't bring politics in it. You know how much I love to make a point, and I love to talk about current events, and I love documentaries that get political because so many people are afraid to talk about the things that we need to talk about. But I do think that there's a time and a place for it. But I do also love the fact that you can take an art piece like a musical or an animation or a movie or a painting or a song, and you feel what you want to feel with it. So yes, people at that time could feel that, and people, can do whatever. But I loved what his sister said about it is, he did put himself in his work, but not like that. He didn't make those movies about him. And he easily could have, and nobody would have noticed. Nobody would have blamed him to do it. It reminds me of when I got to interview the director of WALL-E, and everyone thought when WALL-E came out that it was this big story about the environment and how we're lazy and he's like, actually, I was just trying to make this sci-fi animated movie.
You're like, you know what I mean? Make a good movie, guys.
There was politics all over that movie, and I'm sure I have that interview on a hard drive somewhere that I saved from when I worked at Disney. But he was adamant that it had nothing to do with any of those things, but we put our own agenda on things. That's why art is so amazing, is because you get to pick how it makes you feel. You get to decide what it's about. And very rarely do people actually care about what the actual artist wanted it to be about.
And thinking, yeah.
Yeah. So it was an interesting watch. It was a nice little, I would say, appetite changer. What is the thing, you eat between appetites?
It cleanses your palate.
It was a nice little palate cleanser. Thank you. It was a nice little palate cleanser between all of, this high action nerdy stuff that we usually talk about. And I'm going to throw these in there every once in a while, Ty, because I just think you need it a little bit in your life. Just like fine. I know how much I need to know more about the MCU beyond what I know. And I love that. By the way, thank you for everyone's feedback on our episode last week when we talked about WandaVision episodes 1 through 4. We've gotten a lot of feedback on how Ty's comments and his Easter egg hunt has actually helped us, those that don't see it, those that don't know what's below the surface, how it's helping us understand. We're going to come back after episode 9, and if Ty can wait that long, we might go sooner. And we're going to talk about even more Easter eggs and what's happening. And we really love it when you guys comment and you chime in on these things. So if you have comments between now and then, message us, because we'd love to be able to bring that up. Or if you want Ty to answer a question about the MCU and WandaVision and what's going on, if there's something you don't understand, just private message us on Facebook And Ty will use his little nerdy brain, and he'll make sure that in our next episode he answers. Will answer. Well, I mean, I think it's enlightening, because it just makes it so much. It's kind of like this documentary. I now, after knowing the things that you have brought up from the medium that I don't really partake in, I like it even more than I did before. And as much as I liked these musicals and movies that Howard was involved in, now that I know how they were created and how much of himself he gave to these, I love him even more. It's just a bigger bonus. So you get to choose what we're going to talk about next week that does not involve WandaVision. We have to wait a little while. So do you have any ideas about what you would like to talk about?
I have a couple that I want to kind of pick through and think. And guys, you don't have to just, ask questions and comments. We want to hear what you want to talk about. Again,
and I'd love to get a listener on that it has a fanatic moment like Ty does about WandaVision. Are you fanatic about another Disney entity and you want to come on and nerd out? We'd love to have you on the show. Let us know. We're going to have a couple of more guest people on in the next couple of episodes. But yeah, so just message us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. I'm going to sneeze. I'm sorry. Or you can email us at multiplanepodcast@gmail.com. Yeah. So Ty, as soon as you know what you want to talk about next week, let me know. We'll watch it. We want to know your guys' feedback. Ty, any news? Of course, kind of big news with Gina this week from The Mandalorian. As much as I love getting political, I hate getting nerdy political because there are so many high opinions right now whether her getting fired was appropriate or not. Here's my opinion, Ty, and then I'll let you kind of give your opinion. For it. When I worked for the Walt Disney Company, I was told right off the bat that my social media, whether it was my private or public pages, could not contain certain things. That I represent now the Disney Company because they give me a paycheck. People know I work for Disney. And so therefore I need to represent something. And if I don't adhere to that, and that's also with my current job right now, there's certain things that I cannot post on social media, even as much as I would like to have an opinion about things. I have to keep them to myself if I want to keep my job. Okay. So this was not a secret to her. It's a very political season over the past year and a half and a very volatile season. And I feel bad for her because there are moments where I really, really want to speak up and say some things about some things that I believe in. And sometimes I feel like it kind of sucks that I can't. But then I realized, oh, wait, I read all of this before I signed my thing so that I can get my paycheck. And so it has nothing to do with free speech at all. It has everything to do with you work for a company and your company has things. And everybody says, well, it shouldn't be on social media. Social media should not be a part of that. Well, guess what? It is. Just like back in the day, because you worked very close to your home, if you went out in public and you did something in public that looked bad on the company you worked for, you were dismissed. This is public now. So as much as you think she had the right to say what she had to say, she did. But she knew the consequences that would come with what she said. And so my opinion is I feel bad that not everyone gets to state the things that they are passionate about and that they feel passionate about. But when you choose the job that you have, unfortunately, there are consequences that come with it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Ty, if that's how you feel or if...
No, I'm pretty close to the same lines, Yeah, she has the right to think and say what she wants, but for the company that you work for might have stipulations and they have a way that they want to be, they have an image that they want. And if you say something that hinders that image, it follows the consequences of your employment. So
yeah.
That's
yeah. And we'll see what happens because if you didn't hear, Joss Whedon is getting some blowback right now because of the girl, one of the actresses that was on, oh my gosh, it was a show a long time ago. Let me see. Sorry, I didn't look this up before, but I honestly didn't think we were going to talk about it. But Joss Whedon Da, da, da. Oh, for some reason it's not in the news. So it's not, is it J.J. Abrams?
What's the movies they directed?
Hold on. Da, da, da. Sorry, my brain is so done this week. My dog has been so sick and I have not slept like for 2 weeks. Luckily, we found out he just has an infection, but because he still has to go to the bathroom like every hour, that's been my life. So my brain is just done. So basically, I still want to say that it's Joss Whedon, but it may not be. But one of them, I guess, was not very great on the set of a show that they directed a long time ago. And the actress said she just could not take it anymore. She had to share it. So that kind of gets into like, when is it okay for someone to change as a person? It didn't happen today. Will they take the same precautions on him that they did on, her?
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same, but people are going to try and make it the same, and make it a male female thing, I think. But gosh, it's really bothering me that I can't figure this out because it's been in my news all week long. And then when I get here, I can't find it because I can't talk about that on the radio. Like nobody cares. You know what I mean? My audience doesn't care there. But oh my gosh, it's going to bother me. And I'm sure like people are listening. And
I think I know what you're talking about. And I think it might've been J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about now. And yeah, they might flip that to make it to where it's a guy and a woman were saying it kind of. I'm not going to get into it. There's a million different corners and routes they can take. Yeah. I'm just sad because I loved Cara Dune. Like a lot of people say she was.
I really liked her the first season. I didn't care for her so much the second season, but I don't necessarily think that was her fault because it's in the writing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but I do think she can grow as an actress. I don't think that she's the best actress yet. And there were some parts in season 2 where I feel like you could tell she was acting. Like it wasn't just natural for me, but they knew that when they cast her that she is a new actress, right?
Yeah.
And so you cast, and Disney is really good at that. They cast people that they want to grow with them. And so it's hard to say where she would have gone. I honestly, I know the things that she said in a lot of people's eyes are racist. I know that racism should never be tolerated. But I think it's more, to me, I think it's more political than it was. It's hard because one, it's really hard to go tweet your feelings and for everyone to get. I've been in this very place where I will post something on Facebook and in my mind, in the feelings that I'm feeling, I post it and then it comes back and everyone sees it as a totally different thing. And I'm like, well, that's not what I meant. So I delete it. And so I feel, I just want to tell celebrities, if there is something that you're very passionate about that you feel like you want to share, do it in a video. But you need to talk to someone before you do it. Say it out loud first to someone else. Get all of the first time you say it out of the way. You know what I mean? And then if you really still feel like that you need to share this, do it through a video because it's just like texting someone. You can't emote what you mean. And people are going to take what they want from that.
They're going to totally do a different,
so response. I feel for her, but at the same time, I don't agree with the statements that she made. But it's just tricky. It's really tricky. I don't know that she should have. And the thing is we don't know all about what happened behind closed doors with her and Disney. You know what I mean? Like they could have gone to her and said, look, like you're a big part of our family here. Disney doesn't just throw people away, by the way. You know, once you're in the Disney family, they really try and figure things out with you. You know, and so maybe she was also kind of done. You know what I mean? Like maybe she was like, I don't want to make any middle ground here. I don't want to do anything. So yeah, if you want to fire me, then fire me. We don't know. We have no idea what happened, and it's too bad. But
long story short, just upset we lost, you know, the most attractive woman in Star Wars history, but
Rosario Dawson.
I don't know.
Yeah, for me, Rosario Dawson does it way more than her. I'm not
really?
putting her down. I love that I love that they put a curvy woman, because for me, like I don't often see women that I feel represent me on the big screen. Like you usually have like the bombshell, the really thin, or like the really the bigger woman. Like there isn't often just kind of like this kind of stout, curvy like woman that could knock you on your butt. You know what I mean? And her body and her personality on screen represented me more than anyone I have ever seen as a character before. And I was just kind of like, that's rad. Like, you know, and she even came back from quarantine just a little bit heavier, just like me, you know, and I was like, love it. Like, I felt like, you know, we kind of connected a little bit.
Yeah, you're on the same level.
You know, in that route. Yeah, so I mean it's just too bad. If she would have said these things any other year, would it have made such a big difference? I don't know. You know, it's just one of those things. And you know what? She is gonna rebound from it. She's already doing another gig, I think, on a conservative news channel or something.
Yeah.
But
I just heard about it. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, they announced it yesterday, and I don't know either because I don't watch a lot of conservative news. I mean, I watch some, but not a lot. But like, good for her. If that's the route she wants to go with her career, then great. I mean, she started out wrestling, right?
She's a UFC fighter. Yeah.
Yeah, UFC fighter. So I mean, like, I'm pretty sure she's okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing is like, dude, there's repercussions for your job. Has nothing to do with freedom of speech. I didn't mean to go that far into that, but that was the big news this week. That's what everybody's talking about Disney-wise this week. That and Epcot. I think they're done with the renovation on Epcot Center, and they brought back the wall where you share like all of your memories, which I've never gotten to do, and I was so afraid they were going to take it down, but it's up. What do they call that wall?
No clue.
Wall.
I've never been to Epcot, so
I've been to Epcot, but it was when I was younger, so I don't think there was any way my parents would have. Okay, so here it is, and it just started a while, like a couple of years ago. It hasn't been around for a long time. It's Leave a Legacy.
Okay.
And it's basically these walls that are up around Epcot that you can collaborate with, I guess. I've never gotten to do it before, but it did announce that it went back up. So this last week.
Oh yeah, these are cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it went from 1999 to 2007. I'm reading this correctly, and if you guys have been to this and I'm off, then let me know. But yeah, so it's back up, and I think that's really cool. So I have some friends that are actually at Disney World right now, and I'm living vicariously through them on the Facebook. I want to go, man. I want to go so bad. Why didn't I plan my wedding there? I'm such an idiot.
So we're looking at October.
If I'm getting married in October, so.
Well, okay. Well, I guess we'll have to figure out the date.
No, I'm just saying, like, I won't be there with you because I'll be in Hawaii. I got to pay for Hawaii.
So yeah, it's if Disneyland doesn't open or if we don't get an announcement by this summer, yeah, we're heading to Disney World for Halloween. And
you'll do some live videos?
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And we're excited to chat with you guys next week. Let us know again what you would love to hear us talk about. And we'll talk to you later.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.